And good morning, or good afternoon, or good evening, depending what time of the day you're watching this Hammers United members update. A few things that I'll be touching on updates today for our members and the extended West Ham fan base is firstly, season ticket renewals. We've been inundated with requests for updates and different complaints in and around the renewals. Seating plan updates will be something else we'll touch on here. Getting back to football in general and what that means, and communication with the club, as well as an update on the Independent Supporters Board and the progress being made in those areas. But firstly, I'd like to share with you some of the feedback we've had from some of you guys, the members, and the ones that have stood out over the past week. Very much have been these few that we've pulled together. The first one being one by Joe Millen. And Joe, like many others we've seen, says he just doesn't feel valued anymore by the club, which is tragic, really. He says that the club's approach to season ticket renewals and the things that they've done in and around the seating plan, he thinks they're just not being fair to fans in the current climate. And Joe, I think a lot of the other members agree with you, mate. Andy Ball is one of many more who have been completely confused by option 3 and wants some help and assistance in trying to understand what refundability would look like should he choose to opt out in 21-22. Will he get his money back or will he not? What does that look like? And these are one of many questions that we've tried to enter into dialogue in with the club, but we'll touch on that shortly. Andy Hopkins, well, Andy pulls no punches and goes straight in, actually. Andy says that he believes the current question actually is in and around the morality of the board's approach, given the current climate, and that for them to ask for money in advance is despicable. So I think there are quite a few out there, Andy, who share your view. Steve Vaughan, hello Steve. Steve says that many of their hard-working fans at the moment, many of our hard-working supporters are being fleeced by the club, and that just can't be right. And I think everybody would agree with that, Steve. And we've also got Tony Croft, and Tony says, actually, he feels like it's a liberty that the club have taken with its current positioning and the statement it's made around the updates and renewals and the way they're looking to try and drag us back into football in this climate. He feels personally that he's being held to ransom and he refuses to be extorted anymore. So thanks very much for your comments there, guys. Keep them coming into us. We'd always look to try and review them. This is now going to be part of our weekly update that we'll give out to you at Hammers United every Sunday. And as you all know, we met with the club a couple of weeks ago now, and despite assurances that these items on the agenda were a work in progress, and you know that our views and the views of others in and around that meeting, particularly in regard to season ticket renewals and getting back to football, which was the initial premise of the meeting, we were told that all of those views would be considered and we'd look to make progress moving forward with them. Unfortunately, post the debacle or communications error and breakdown, the way that option 3 was released with the 30% kind of pay down, there's been no further communication with anybody from the club. We were hoping to get a response back by I think it was the Friday of Friday week beforehand, which I think was the 31st of July. But the days will become a bit of a blur on lockdown, don't they? So we appreciate it's holiday season, right? And we know that people have got vacation to take and people have got commitments, but we've still not received the minutes from that meeting. And despite some very good dialogue, as I said, post that option 3 kind of debacle, we've still not heard anything post that announcement. In football, in terms, you'd say it's all gone quiet over there, which is far from great. And that brings us nicely onto communication, which you will know was called out by Hammers United as being a huge problem. And the invitation was extended, actually, by Tara Warren to meet up as a priority to discuss how this could be improved. We're still waiting for any confirmation of that meeting, that it will happen. It was promised, but as a priority, as I said, our last conversations were back last week in July, and we're still waiting for minutes, confirmations and the like, which, seeing as we're talking about communication, is obviously very disappointing. And that really surprises me. And I'll tell you why it surprises me. If we go back to the last home game that West Ham fans could actually attend, that, you may recall, was the West Ham Southampton game, must-win game for us as part of that running and campaign. And you may recall there was the largest demonstration by supporters in protest since the inception of the Premier League. That's when Hammers United proudly led 8,500 of our supporters along the Greenway to demonstrate against the current regime and what the impacts of their tenure have been at the club and the impact of being a supporter at West Ham. What we asked for and what those guys demonstrated for, they were frustrated, and we asked for a change of leadership and a change of ownership at the club. Now, seeing as that is the biggest demonstration since the inception of the Premier League, I do wonder exactly, and I know football clubs are multi-million-pound businesses, you know, but I do wonder exactly what could be more important on the priority stakes, given that time deficit to now and where we are, than looking to engage and appease those frustrated fans, which we represent a big chunk of. Obviously, that in-person demonstration was followed by black balloon demonstrations up at Anfield when we had the restriction on ticket allocation, and then again at the Arsenal when we had the Arsenal away and another big black balloon demonstration there. So it's frustrating as to why we're not progressing here, particularly when there seems to be some promise and we get some engagement and then none comes back. And we've got a lot of our members making a lot of asks of us that we want to be in dialogue with the club about, and we appear to be currently to be given the cold shoulder again and being pushed back onto the peripheries, which is really disappointing. And it's been suggested to me, remarkably actually, that one of the reasons for that is that my good self, or my bad self clearly, did an interview with Gonzo at Hammers Chat about a week or so back, which has been in the diary for a good while. We regularly speak to friends of HU across the West Ham media and other outlets to talk about the current state, the as is, and we did that quite openly. I think I was very fair. And a further interview that was carried out by Andy Byrne and myself and a couple of other people on a panel, Q&A kind of thing, that was run on kumb.com, Knees Up Mother Brown. And apparently that's upset some people at the club, and it's been suggested that may well be why we are currently being cold-shouldered. Now, what I find astounding about that is collectively, as I'm sure you've all got better things to do in your time to listen to me and Andy and the broader support base, collectively, the two of those videos, about 3 hours worth of content, and I'm hearing like 4 or 5 people have sat down and watched those videos, and that's about 15 man-hours, right, to digest what we're talking about as being the problems at West Ham. And yet we can find, or they can find, and I don't want to make it us and them, but it's starting to feel a bit like that, and that's a real shame. They can't find 5 minutes to pick up a phone and share an update that they'd already agreed to do. So 15 hours watching my mush and Andy's, which granted is a prettier mush to look at than mine, I suppose, and a host of others, they can find the time to do that, but not find the time to engage with us directly and give us the common courtesy of an update and a response, fully knowing that we represent 13,500 West Ham fans. I find that incredible to understand. I just do not understand it. For the life of me, I don't understand it. And in the meantime, while all this goes on and we don't get the phone call and we're still not getting these things promised, we're hearing from other fans who, again, are a time-served West Ham fans, time-served West Ham fans who are so frustrated, and they're throwing it in. And that's heartbreaking to me as a Hammer, to see guys who have been there for decades. And I'm talking about time-served supporters, Martin Ruz has been supporting West Ham for 48 years, and he's just had enough of the current regime. It just doesn't sit with him any longer well enough, and he's walking away. Clive Smith. Clive's been a regular at West Ham for 68 years, right? That's almost 7 decades of being a West Ham fan, right? The financial investment, the emotional investment that he's made to this club and people like him to get it where it is today. Clive, tragically, just says he can't take it anymore. He can't take it anymore. He feels detached. He feels disenfranchised. He's had enough, and it's heartbreaking to me. And you even see people that are taking the option 3, which that we didn't agree with. We think it was better than nothing. We wanted We wanted a lot more for a lot less financial commitment. But, I think the option 3 was summed up best by, I think it was Bill Ross, by Bill Ross. Bill Ross said, Bill Ross used his club cash to purchase his option 3. But he said after doing it, he felt like he had mug written across his forehead, that he'd been tucked up into doing it. That's not a healthy, feel-good experience, is it? As a West Ham fan, you should be thrilled in what you're doing and thrilled in what you're delivering. If that's not happening, that's a real problem. Whichever way you look at it, it's an appalling way to treat your fans, many of whom have contributed their support for decades. And the question for me is, is there no loyalty from the custodians of our great club? Is there no loyalty from them to our long-standing supporters? With decades, time served, decades of support put in. Because if there is, I can't see it, I can't see it. And then we move on to the seating plan, and we've been inundated with complaints about the seating plan, and we really want to get this dialogue started so we can start kicking stuff forward. But at the moment, nobody seems to want to talk to us. Our mate Chris Shepherd is one of dozens of messages we've received. Chris, I think let me just get this right here. Chris is, let me just check Chris out here on the detail. Yeah, so Chris is one of about a dozen messages we've received here in complaint. Chris has been moved back he's been moved back 3 rows, right, and shunted out about 30 yards to the left. And he's tried time and time again to get hold of someone at the club to speak to him, and nobody will talk to him. Graham's even worse, actually. Graham's had the same kind of experience in the shift as Chris, but with the added bonus of being split up from the other 3 members of his family that he goes to watch football with. Now, it's just not sounding like the behaviour of a family-friendly football club, is it? And it's just not the right or proper way to conduct yourselves, West Ham. We had assurances that everybody that was impacted by these seating moves was receiving a call and being helped. And yet all we're hearing from our members is, well, they speak to the ticket office and someone says, well, if you renew, we'll move you. And if you renew early, you have a chance to be able to move back into somewhere like where you were beforehand. But if you don't renew, you don't renew and there's no guarantees. And I'm a bit like, well, these everyone in that stadium pretty much that made the transition over from the bowling to the Olympic Stadium, and people who then took season tickets for the first time round, etc., found the members, right? There was a value to that. What's the value of those supporters to the people that own the club? Or am I going to hear this rhetoric bandied about again about a 50,000 waiting list? So therefore, doesn't matter. Once we've got your money, you're expendable. We'll just jump on to the next person. Because let me tell you, the fan base is at a point where that's not going to wash. It's my intention and the intention of our committee to look to rally all West Ham supporters and highlight what we see as unacceptable behaviour by the custodians of the club against our fans. Your fans deserve more. They deserve your respect. We put in our time, our effort and our money to support our club, home and away, year after year, decade after decade, long before many of you were involved commercially in the club. So how about showing us the respect that we deserve as supporters? How about some constructive dialogue to address the problems by the people that actually want to talk about the problems? We've got another one of our members. He spent almost 2 hours on the phone to the ticket office, and bless him, he's run up a bill of 70 quid, right? He's run up a £70 phone bill trying to get some answers, right? Which to me is madness. To have a premium rate phone number to go and renew your tickets anyway to a ticket office, to me, fundamentally on principle, is just wrong, right? You're paying for a ticket. You were charging a booking fee. Why are you charging me for the duration of the call? Another one of our members, and this one even annoyed my mum, Phoenix Flames, right? One of our disabled members at Hammers United has had murders with the club as for whatever reason they decided to see fit to take away his disabled season ticket and give him an accessible adult season ticket. Phoenix is understandably furious, and as I said, even my mum thought that it was disgusting that someone should have to go through that kind of indignation, when all he wants to do is go and support the club that he loves. It just isn't good enough, West Ham. It just isn't good enough. So we're at Hammers United. Well, we continue to wait for the club, as we have been, and hopefully someone's going to deem us worthy of a return phone call on these. I'd say they're hugely important issues when you've got, 8,500 people marching onto the stadium on a match day. I'd say that should be a priority, and it's pretty important. We continue to work with our friends at the Football Supporters Association, and with Jake Heath, the Supporters Liaison Officer, who has been doing a good job of late. And we'll be reaching out over the next week to a host of other independent West Ham bodies, independent West Ham media, and broader media, as we look to drive forward with creating a new and independent supporters board that will be by the fans, for the fans. And given the current apathy around communication and engagement, as Secretary of Hammers United, more than ever before, I'm absolutely convinced that the only way that we'll be able to change anything at the club, right, will be with an independent supporters board, because if anything's built in and around the historic club construct, we're going to run into the historic club problems. And at the moment, is it working? 8,500 people marching to the stadium on match day? Probably not. The largest independent supporters group being cold-shouldered by the club for the best part of a fortnight? Probably not working, is it? Probably not working. And obviously, when you've got that many people taking a stroll down the Greenway and then trooping all the way up to the stadium, we have to bear that in mind, and we pay attention to the feelings of our members who are becoming even more frustrated. There's more frustration and more anger against the current regime at the club and the leadership team at the club now than there was the day that we demonstrated, right? And that's incredible to think that you've had that entire time window from the end of February to now to look to improve it, and it's only gotten worse, right? So with that in mind, and with the increasing frustration amongst our membership these past few weeks, and the debacles around the season ticket renewals and the seating plan updates, we are now engaging once more. And you've got to take into account here that after the demonstration against, when we played Southampton, the next big planned demonstration was going to be against Villa for the last game of the season. And the communication that we were in with our members and broader groups and everybody else was that we were looking to take 12,000 people out on the last day of the season. So with that in mind, we're re-engaging with the council, we're re-engaging with the stadium and the Olympic Park operators. We're going to be re-engaging with the Metropolitan Police, because these are huge numbers that we're talking about when we look to protest. And we're going to explore what protest will look like in a post-pandemic world. Now, let's be very clear here. This group will not do anything to place its members at risk, but at the same time, we will not just idly stand by while the club that we all love is slowly eroding in front of our very eyes, right? We're just not going to let that happen with a regime that's got a track record of the one that's currently in play of over a decade at the club, not delivering on the, you can call them whatever you want, best intentions, promises, expectations that they set in play, with their 17 years previous behind them at Birmingham and all the experience I hear about. We are in a situation where you have got massive dissatisfaction amongst the rank and file supporters at West Ham. We want something done about it, so we will look to investigate what protest looks like in this current climate. We know when the new season starts. We've got a nice time window. Hopefully people will look to start to talk to us in lieu of what we're looking to do. But we remain a voluntary group of normal West Ham fans just like you guys. I would implore all of you, if you are watching this video and you do not currently have a membership with Hammers United, joining Hammers United is free. We are a fully affiliated member of the Football Supporters Association and the largest independent West Ham supporters group. So please, I think the website is here, I think it will be, when it comes up on this backdrop. Feel free to log on and join. We'd love to have you on board. You are the football club. If you're frustrated, if you're disappointed, like the vast majority of our members are, with the current approach taken by the ownership and leadership teams in place at the club, join us. We are committed to achieving change at the club, and more and above anything else, stay safe in the current climate, and we'll remain Hammers United. Come on, you irons.